we have news about what the unannounced project from ArenaNet could be. Will it be Guild Wars 3, a mobile game, another MMORPG from another IP? Let's talk about it. Subscribe to the channel for more content on this, and let's get into it. So, what's the news? Well, I have this friend who usually talks about this kind of stuff, and they tweeted something very, very interesting. As you can see here, they were digging on stuff on the LinkedIn of Guild Wars 2, and one of the people that actually work in ArenaNet, working on Guild Wars 2, and they've done other things for this expansion and things from last expansions as well. They said over the course of 1 month, guided an outsourcing team while authoring FX files, resulting in the creation of 295 Unreal assets for unannounced content. And what does that mean? That means that not only are developers working on Guild Wars 2, but they're also moving certain assets into Unreal Engine 5, because, you know, the unannounced project is in Unreal Engine 5, to use it for that content, right? Which makes sense. You know, at the end of the day, if you have one game, why don't you use those assets and repurpose them to make them work in the new one? It makes complete sense. And of course, you can see here as well that they said, wrote experimental Python tool to export vertex animations as textures from Maya into Unreal Engine 5 for animating static meshes and mesh particle creatures. And what does this mean? This means that they are, they're using usually Maya to create their own assets for Guild Wars 2. And they're, they made a tool, so those assets that they created and maybe are essentially saved as well in their files can be transported into Unreal Engine 5. This means that, of course, they could use the old ones, they could use the new ones that they make, and of course, they could also create new ones in Maya. Probably they're kind of familiar with that software anyways, for the Unreal Engine. So this is probably, a good idea. It makes sense, and it'll make their work smoother. But it also means that there's a good possibility that all of these, assets have something to do with what the unannounced project is. Of course, if they're using Guild Wars 2 assets to use it for the next unannounced project, it's probably gonna be an RPG kind of similar to what Guild Wars 2 is. Some might even say that it means that Guild Wars 3 is coming, or that it's essentially just a port from Guild Wars 2 to Unreal Engine 5 to kind of like update the engine and make it look better. And of course, because the game is very old, make it so the code is not very, right now, every time there's a new patch, everything kind of breaks. And that's not very good. And if you move to a new engine that it kind of, gets updated by someone else, it kind of makes it easier for you to have your game, more stable and not have as many problems. Of course, this is a very big undertaking, but it's definitely something that, well, considering that these things are here, could be a possibility. We don't really know, but yeah. We also have some more new evidence about some other stuff as well. In here, there's a new, senior director production unannounced project job that you can apply to in ArenaNet, and it gives you some hints what the unannounced project might be. As you can see here, it says have a production director or AP leading the launch at least one new AAA title on console and PC platforms. So, they're essentially saying, hey, this is going to be an AAA title, and I want you to have experience on it. So it's a very big project. It also says, have played MMORPG genre games and have basic or better understanding of the genre. That sounds like it is an actual MMORPG. Is it completely confirmed that it is? Maybe just very similar to an MMORPG, or maybe it's a multiplayer online RPG, not very massive, something like Destiny 2 or something like this. It could be, right? Maybe something that goes with Guild Wars 2 instead of, replacing it. We don't really know. But it does seem like it has an online massive, RPG twist to it, right? It is also apparently, they have to have 5 years plus experience in publishing and live operation of a free-to-play online game. So that means that it's probably going to be free-to-play, at least how Guild Wars 2 is. It has a little bit of a trial. Very important there. This other part that talks about how you have to have experience on a AAA title on console and PC platforms, making it sound like this is gonna be a game for console and PC, not a mobile game. As honestly, if if it actually was a mobile game, or if it had a type of mobile component to it, it probably would have to be in the experience that they would ask for. So where does this lead us? This means that this game is going to be a PC and console game. It's gonna be a free-to-play game. It's gonna be an online game as well. And it most likely is gonna be an MMORPG that is being used, that Guild Wars 2 assets are being reused on it. It probably could be, and this is my possibilities, right? And Guild Wars 2.5 Unreal Engine port. So essentially moving Guild Wars 2 to Unreal Engine and making a little bit of an update. Kind of like what Overwatch 1 did to Overwatch 2, but actually good. Something maybe like CSGO made by transforming CSGO into CS Counter-Strike 2, from moving it from one engine to the other, right? Updating it. It is definitely a possibility. It's a very high undertaking, but in some ways it makes sense, as, to be honest, Guild Wars 2 is kind of a little bit, it's showing its age in some ways, especially in terms of the coding and, how much things break all the time. And it's kind of hard to keep the game updated sometimes, even if they bring us content. And this could fix a lot of those issues. And at the same time, Guild Wars 2 is the game that makes a lot of money to ArenaNet. It's very popular, and the IP is very recognizable. There are people that still, to this day, remember Guild Wars 2 launch, Guild Wars 1, and that nostalgia does it does matter a lot for people. If a new Guild Wars 2 gets released, hey, like guys, it's a remake, it's from one engine to the other, it's Guild Wars 3, kind of, people will come back to it just because it's the new thing. And at the same time, you're not gonna waste, the people that really play the game, they're not gonna feel like, all their effort was essentially deleted because they moved from one MMORPG to the other. A Guild Wars 2 remake is also possible, as this is a bit different than the Unreal Engine port. Think about it this way: if you have a very old texture from a very old game, all these textures and models are gonna be unupdated in the technology that we have right now. They're gonna have less lighting effects, more primitive shaders, more primitive textures. All these things, you can transfer them from one side to the other, but that doesn't mean you're gonna be able to use all the other new technologies into these textures. You're gonna have to essentially remake this model a little bit in order to have all these possibilities into these assets that you used to have. So this would make it so it's way more effort, but it would also make it so you do have a better quality of the game. So in some ways worth it, in some ways maybe not. But considering everything, it seems like this one would be more likely than this one in particular, because this does seem like a bit more effort. Guild Wars 3 could be also another thing that they could be making, as they would just be using the assets that they have for Guild Wars 2. They will not have to port anything and essentially figure out their old code and entangling years and years of bugs and spaghetti code in order to move Guild Wars 2 to the Unreal Engine. You can just make a new game with the same assets that you already have, and just skip the bad part, make a new game. Yeah, sure, you're gonna make a lot of people mad because all of their progress from years and years and years is essentially getting deleted, but Guild Wars 1 already had a system to make it so a lot of the progress that you have in Guild Wars 1 moved to Guild Wars 2, so I guess they could do that again in order to make people not too mad about it. They could make it so your legendaries go to Guild Wars 3. They could make it to your lead specs go to Guild Wars 3. They could do a lot of things, a lot of skins. They could just transfer some achievements, of course, as well. It would take a lot of effort, but maybe that's also a possibility. The other one would be another MMORPG project. This could be a thing, but why not just use the Guild Wars 2 IP? People already recognize it, they like it, and moving to another IP could not only make it so it's not as successful as Guild Wars, but also kill the original project, as they think that, as the players of that project think that they're moving on from them into the new, the new baby, the new project that Arena really cares about, and there's no point in investing in the original game. It makes probably no sense to do this one. I think it's way more likely that there's a Guild Wars 2 engine port or a Guild Wars 3. This game is definitely not a mobile game, as we have seen before and as we talked about. There's no evidence here to say that it actually is. It's a PC or console instead. It is not the Horizon MMO, as we talked about a few months ago, and I have a video I'll link in the description. That one is just completely separate to what Arena is doing. If they did help, they did it as essentially, people on the side, not as the, main, producers and creators of the project. Is it a single player game? As we said before, it is an MMORPG most likely, and a free-to-play game that will continuously be developed, and it's also an online game. So no, it is not a single-player game. You know, something that maybe would make it like, hey, the story of Guild Wars 2 is coming in, and we're gonna make a single-player game so you guys get more invested into it. It doesn't seem like that's the case. Guild Wars 1 remake, I thought this could be an option, but sadly, when I was talking to some people that know a little bit of what ArenaNet's situation is, Guild Wars 1 is so old that you can't really, you can't really transform it into anything else. It's barely, you can play it right now, but changing it in any way, it is very, very difficult for ArenaNet, and it doesn't really seem like it would be a good idea to do this. As the game is, even though it is popular, it is a very old game, a very old type of MMO, old school, and it just seems like it would be better to put your effort somewhere else instead, into the future, rather than going back and redoing something that already exists and was working for the people that really like it anyways. It is also important to note that there's a Guild Wars card game, online trading game that is being developed by NCSoft right now. So it does seem like they want to invest more into the Guild Wars IP. So all of these ones here sounds more possible than this one in particular, right? We'll see what it is, and this is obviously all speculation. Nothing in here is confirmed at all. But it is kind of fun to do it, and it kind of interests me, and we can maybe, with the future, and see how the next expansion for Guild Wars 2 is, how big it is, and how many updates in the game we have. We can maybe make a good assessment of what is more likely here. If the game is being, more updated, and, it keeps being built upon a lot in terms of systems and everything, it is probably likely that it is actually an engine port, as why would they waste all of this effort they're putting in Guild Wars 2 to just make a Guild Wars 3 eventually. Things like the Wizard's Vault makes me think that, this is way more likely, but of course this could change, and it's only speculation. But also, it could be the other way around. If we see that Guild Wars 2 is kind of like, they're not putting that much effort into it, it's only like content, gem store content, new expansions to make money, and nothing to really build upon the game, and instead just giving us something to keep us busy, it might actually be likely that Guild Wars 3 is actually coming in, like, what, 6 years or whatever. It's already confirmed that they are working on the expansion after this one, and that they're thinking about the one after that, even though there's nothing confirmed for that specifically. And the next expansion is coming this year. So it does seem like Guild Wars 3 is getting all of the updates. So Guild Wars 3, honestly, it seems like one of the least likely ones here. But that's what I'm thinking, guys. Tell me if you think I'm full on complete copium, or you think if anything that I said here makes sense. Tell me if you think of any other possibilities that the Unannounced project could be with the information that we have right now. And we'll see you guys around. Subscribe to the channel, go to my Twitch so we can talk about this kind of stuff, play the game, and remember to check my other videos about how to make your legendary obsidian armor, and some other guys I will probably make very soon. See you guys around. Love you all. Bye bye.